Good evening. Wow, so many people from so many different places. Thank you so much for joining us. This is our first salon of the fall. And so we are just starting, I guess, our second year doing this online event. And I'm extremely excited to invite our guest, Tonya Ruiz, onto the Zoom in just a second. I do want to, seeing some of the comments, I do want to just give a little bit of introduction. So many of you may know her by her more viral name, which is Grandma Gets Real. She is the creator of the Quarantine Barbies, and they really, I think, have captured the imagination of people worldwide. And so tonight we're going to talk to her about how it all happened, what she's doing, how she does it, and what the response has been. And it is in relation to our newest exhibition. It opens on Saturday at the Bata Museum here in Toronto. It'll be a free weekend. And so anybody who's in Toronto, I see we have some people joining us this evening from Toronto. It will be open for everybody to come to. And so, Tonya, can you join us? Hi.
Hello.
Welcome. I can see. I see you're in a much warmer place than I. I'm already in a turtleneck, and so I'm very excited to have you here this evening. And I just before we get started, I wanted to give people a little bit of a background as to what the doll exhibition is about. And so I'm going to do a very quick little PowerPoint. And so we'll just get a taste of what the exhibition is showing. Okay, so the exhibition is ready for everybody to come to. And okay, I think I've gotten the, let me see if I can make it move. Do I have control? Okay, next slide, please. Oh, I can, okay, great. So one of the things that I think is really interesting about dolls is that they have been used since time immemorial. Their dolls date back thousands and thousands and thousands of years, and dolls or miniature figurines have been used for many purposes. Some have had to do with ritual, some have had to do with even religion, but many of them have been used to explain and convey gendered expectations. So the dolls in our exhibition, we happen to actually have a wonderful set of dolls in the collection, talk about everything from fashioning femininity and fashioning masculinity to ideas that we have of others. These are two dolls that are in the exhibition. One is a Greek doll that shows the woman spinning wool, because sock making is very important within the traditional Greek community, as is all clothing making. The Greenlandic doll, you can see just the incredible boots that she's wearing mirror perfectly what real life boots, traditional boots look like. And you can also see the baby as part of the teaching of gender expectations. Let's see if I can switch the slide again. I still don't have control. Oh, okay. But one of the most important things that dolls have done historically is convey ideas about gender through fashion. So we have in the exhibition, and if those of you who joined us before came to the last salon that we had, it was with the maker of this doll. This is a replica 18th century doll. And fashion dolls in the 18th century were used to convey ideas about latest fashions before there was internet, before there was publishing. And so the way that you would figure out if you were, say, in a colony far away from home, the latest fashions was that a friend would send you a doll, and then you'd be able to have your seamstress figure out exactly how to construct all the new fashions. So it was both instructive, but it was also beautiful. And when all of that fashion information was taken down, the dolls were often given to young girls to play with. And one would argue that Barbie Barbie is in fact a continuation of this idea. And I really wanted to look at footwear and dolls in this exhibition, in part because things like Barbie Her feet, when she first came out in 1959, could only wear high heels. And so people today might hear the phrase or think about the phrase, we girls can do anything like Barbie. But when she first came out, she couldn't do everything. She could only do things in which she could wear high heels too. And so what did that say? What meanings were being conveyed by that? And, oh, let's go back to, why is this? Okay. You know what, Gus, I'm gonna give you control. Okay, so can I have the next slide, please? The other thing too is that I think a lot of people think that dolls are for girls, but boys have also historically used figurines for play. Toy soldiers, such as the painting that you see from 1832 on the left, and then G.I. Joe was actually invented to be a kind of male doll that functioned very similarly to Barbie. Barbie was their figure that you would buy, and then you would consume all kinds of new fashions to put on her. And so you were sort of keeping Mattel going by buying those fashions. G.I. Joe was the exact same, but G.I. Joe's footwear suggested that G.I. Joe's mission in life wasn't fashion-based, it was action-based. But in fact, the actual practice of buying a doll and dressing it was the exact same for both genders. Okay, next slide. And dolls, as I said, have been used around the world to fashion ideas of gender. This is an incredible doll that we have of a samurai general, probably Yoshitsune, and he's wearing these incredible samurai shoes that you can see. And he's a war hero, and dolls such as his would be put out in celebration of Boys' Day in Japan on May 5th, I believe it is. And it also is a doll, but it's being used to convey ideas of gender, in this case, service. Okay, next slide. And dolls are really popular today as well for a wide range of people, and I think a wider range of people than people realize. So collectible sports heroes, such as this incredible doll of Michael Jordan, comes not only with him dressed as him as a sports hero, but also in this pack comes his Air Jordans 1 through 14. And they're incredible marvels of miniature exactness. And so they are delightful. They do function similarly to the way other dolls function, but at the same time, because they're considered collectible, I think we stop thinking about the fact that they are in fact dolls. Okay, next one. He is wearing sports socks. The exhibition also includes the making of miniature shoes. So not only are dolls and the work that they do is really interesting, but someone has to make everything that they wear. And so the tiny little shoes that you see on the dolls were all made by somebody. And we have this incredible kit that is a doll shoe making kit for young girls. It's from the turn of the 20th century. And it taught little girls how to make shoes for their dolls. But what's particularly interesting about it is that in the West, shoemaking is a male craft, or it's a gendered craft. And so it's a really curious piece. I actually, it's a new acquisition. I want to do more research on it. Okay, next slide. And the making of footwear itself can also be found in a number of dolls, actually. And we happen to have 3 beautiful Inupiat dolls that show different stages of boot making. And the artist who made these remembered seeing, she makes dolls doing things from her childhood, and they often are meant to be seen together. And here you have the Inupiat woman who's actually adding the sole to the shaft of the boot, while simultaneously the doll herself is also wearing a pair of these miniature boots. Okay, next. Another thing too that dolls do and miniature footwear does is that they serve as souvenirs of difference. One of the things, if any of you have ever flown into Amsterdam, the airport there, you know, when you get off, you see all of these clogs everywhere, even though the Dutch don't actually wear clogs anymore. The clog has become a signifier of Dutchness. And so buying souvenir dolls, buying miniature clogs, these are ways of both remembering someplace that you've been to, but also constructing ideas of cultural difference. Same with this tiny, tiny little pair of juti that you see compared to the life-size one that we have in the collection. And again, thinking about the makers of these and how tiny, tiny, tiny and careful those stitches are. Okay, one more. Dolls today are, there has been criticism. It's something we're going to explore in just a moment about the limitations of many dolls historically. There's been kind of a white look to these dolls. They are not diverse in any way. They're very binary, and dolls makers today are starting to offer greater diversity, both of, so here we have wheelchair Barbie, and it's interesting because Mattel had made a wheelchair Barbie a few years ago, but she couldn't actually get into the dream house. And so they had to refashion her and make it so that she would be accessible. And you can see this one was successful. And on the right, you can see a gender fluid Barbie that allows, or sorry, figure that allows for different hair, different non-gender clothing to be worn, or highly gendered clothing, but maybe to be put on in non-binary ways. And so it's really an interesting time in the history of dolls to see what people are creating. And then lastly, the exhibition ends with a look at online character creation, which also is very focused on dressing avatars. And I argue that this is modern day and updated doll play. And I think it's particularly interesting because if you think about who is the majority of players online or in gaming, and you think, I think that there might be some surprise if you think about the fact that this character creation is just a new form of dress up. So the exhibition deals with these issues in more depth. This is just a little taste of what's to come. So hopefully people want to come see the exhibition. But without further ado, let's talk. Let's talk about Grandma Gets Real and how this all happened. I know there's also a short PowerPoint to give us some background.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, this is actually art one of my followers made for me.
Oh, that's nice.
That's sweet.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, mine went twice too. All right.
Yeah.
This is me when I was 5 years old. I was skinny, long legs, and my grandfather used to always tell me that it looked like I changed legs with a stork. So this was me as a little kid. And when I was 15, I grew into my stork legs, fortunately. And I got a model agent and I started modeling. I had always wanted to be a model and I was able to start doing that. When I was 16, I was offered an all expense paid trip to Paris and they promised they were going to turn me into the next top model. And so I moved to Paris. This is 1980 for Christian Dior, Tokyo, the fall, and that's a shoe. And since it's a shoe museum, I wanted to show my shoe picture.
It is the perfect picture for us.
I was in Teen Magazine and Teen Magazine wrote that it was like something that happens in the movies, and the modeling world and the fashion industry does have some glamour to it. I got to see the best that it had to offer and I got to see the worst that it had to offer. And it actually is a very ugly business of beautiful people. And so, and especially being so young, it was way too much for me. And after 3 years in it, I was actually suicidal and went home and walked away from the modeling industry without a backward glance. I got married, and after I had my kids, I started rethinking how I came to have the warped view of what beauty was that I did. And from my childhood, from my modeling, and now as a mother, I really wondered what I was going to do different to teach my daughters. And after my 2 girls, I had 2 boys. What was I going to do different to teach them than the way that I was raised and my ideas about beauty? And here I was, after I started thinking about it and all the issues I wanted to discuss, I actually started traveling all over the US and teaching about body image, teaching about the modeling industry, teaching about how to raise your children differently so that they didn't grow up with such a warped idea of beauty beauty. And I use Barbies as very bad examples of what not to have in your house, because at the time I really felt that the Barbies, and for lots of reasons, were not a good toy for your children to have. I did TV, I did magazines, and the title was always Beyond Barbie, Living Beyond Barbie. You know, it was always anti-Barbie. I was known as the anti-Barbie speaker. Here I am. This was my promo headshot that I used to send out and that they used to use to advertise my speaking. And it was me with a Barbie and some Barbie books. And I was advertised at a Barbieologist, and I would tell the truth about Barbie. And when I was speaking in the early 2000s, Mattel came out with the Happy Family Grandma Barbie. And I was so happy about this because she was older, she had a thicker waist, she had flat feet, and she had—
Yeah, it's important.
I know, and she had crow's feet. And I was like, finally a Barbie that I felt like represented me. So I bought that Barbie, and I used to use her when I speak, and I'd hold her up and say, they finally made a Barbie that looks like the older me. Fast forward 2 decades, and I'm now using that same Barbie on my Instagram, Grandma Gets Real, along with the Happy Family Grandpa Barbie. This is the Barbie right out of the box. I have not customized her. Her face is the way it came. I don't know why. I mean, obviously it was not made after me. Everyone always says they made a Barbie of you. And I said, no, that's how it came in the box. It is not a Barbie of me, but it's fun that it looks like me. Now, this is how I have adapted the Barbie. I did a little Frankenstein work, and I changed her head and I put it on the curvy body because I felt like that was a better representation of me. And these are some of the things I use on my account. The little bag with Barbies, the Grandma Gets Real t-shirt, and the grandbabies, and the Diet Coke, my weakness. So these are some of the items I use on my Instagram account. This is my family in Barbie form. So one year I took my family and tried to recreate my Christmas photo with the Barbies. And it was quite a challenge to get that many dolls to look at the camera and to stand up. They're a bit like dominoes. They fall over when you start, as anybody that takes photos of Barbies knows. But anyway, this was my Christmas photo one year, real life and Barbie life. This is my Barbie. This is a photo from my Instagram account. And this is her with some of her #1 Barbies, 1959. And this is her little collection. This is my Barbie taking photos of her Barbie. So we have a world within a world. We have my Barbie, and then she has her own. So we do a little, I think Inception was the movie. So everyone always says that when they see this photo. So. This is my Barbie, and this is the Barbie that's my sister's mini-me is what we call them. And so this is at Disneyland. So I like to take my Barbie around to local places and take photos just like I would of myself. This is my Barbie on her motorized bicycle, taking her Barbies out. And I have a lot of fun taking them out, and people do stop and ask, but they're usually just very interested and very friendly. This is my Barbie at the movies. This is a Barbie with some of the minis from my family at the beach. And so the grandkids, of course, went that day and helped me set up and take their little Barbies, and they love doing it. Everybody's a good sport about my dolls. Barbie's on a picnic, and of course she's got fudge brownies. So I love finding the tiny brands. Now this is our Barbie actually representing my real life. My husband loves to cook and bake, and I don't go in the kitchen unless I want to find something to eat and snack on. So here we have my husband making cookies in the Barbie world. My Barbie goes camping, the little Coleman cooler and the Coleman lantern, and so the tiny tent, and she goes camping. So usually if I go on a trip, I just take her. And here she is in her office. It's like me. I'm usually on my computer, my phone, and my iPad at the same time. So here's Grandma Barbie representing what I do. And surprisingly, I'm on all across social media, and I get millions of views a month of my Barbies, and it's quite funny. So that's the last slide of my PowerPoint.
Awesome. Well, I think everybody can see why we wanted to talk to you. There's such interesting setups. It's such an interesting approach to using Barbie. And so how did you actually come to be Grandma Gets Real? How did this part actually start?
Well, after I was speaking and writing about body image for many years, in 2012, my husband became ill and I quit my job to stay home and care for him. So I put all my speaking props in a box and I put them in the attic. So my Barbies, all my other little speaking things, they were in a box in the attic. And a few years ago, my grandchildren were in the attic and they found the box and they're like, Grandma, you have Barbies? And they were so surprised because they knew I was anti-Barbie, and they were like, they couldn't believe that they found Barbies at my house. And I said, yeah. And so they also found the Grandma Barbie in the box, and they said, well, why did they make a Barbie of you? And I said, well, it's not actually me, but that's the Grandma Barbie. And they said, well, can we play with the dolls? And I was like, oh no, because this was exactly what I didn't want, all the the same Barbie, the blonde hair, blue eyes Barbies. And I said, and my husband is Hispanic, so my grandchildren are not blonde hair, blue eyes. Most of them are not. And so I said to them, Mattel has come out with a new line of Barbies, and they're diverse. There's more skin tones. There's more body shapes. Why don't we see if we can find some Barbies that represent us and you guys, and then we can play with Barbies. And so that's what we did, is we started out on a quest to find Barbies that match my family.
And so had you already started making these vignettes, or does that happen only once quarantine hits?
No, I had started. So when we found these dolls, and I had seen a few people were taking pictures of dolls and posting them online. And I said to the grandkids, I said, wouldn't that be fun if we started making little dioramas and making little photos and posting them on Instagram? And so we started setting up, and they were building things out of popsicle sticks and painting stuff, and we were finding things. And then I got online and saw there's a whole world out there that you can find. So that was when it started, was with my grandkids, actually just helping them set up. And at the beginning, they were setting up and taking the photos and doing it. I was just like the encourager.
So let's then talk about quarantine Barbies and the fact that it went so viral. So what was the first quarantine Barbie that you did?
Well, the first Barbie I did, and I think you guys have a slide of it, is the quarantine Barbie starter pack. And I was seeing people talking about what they were doing during quarantine. And I even saw a couple of people posting Barbies that were quarantined. And I thought, oh gosh, I should make a Barbie of what I'm doing in quarantine, which is wearing my stretchy pants and having snacks. And so I posted this on my Instagram, and I just thought my followers, my friends, would get a kick out of seeing this, because I figured they were doing the same thing, and got a lot of attention, and it was really funny.
And so, but this wasn't the only one. So can we talk a little bit about some of the others? Like,
okay, which one?
Zoom Ken? What about Zoom Ken?
Zoom Ken. Now, Zoom Ken, I was watching because everybody was learning Zoom, and I was watching the different newscasters get online and do their news program or whatever, and then they would stand up. And one local newscaster stood up, and he had his boxers on. I was like, oh no, does he? Oh no! And I thought, that's funny that you only dressed from the top up, and if you stand up, you've shown yourself. So that was why I made Zoom Ken. And then the babies in the box, because so many people were interrupted by their kids. And,
indeed, that is very true. And what about working from home mom?
Working from home, that is, a lot of my friends found themselves working from home and trying to juggle the kids and the dogs and the work schedule and their computers, and trying to have a quiet conversation. And it was really a challenge for a lot of people I knew to actually work from home. And so I think it was just a new thing for so many people, because they had never been home. No one had ever been home like this.
I love the bagel bites.
Yeah,
right? That's all I can make you kids.
Yeah. You gotta have bagel bites and a coffee pot.
And then also quarantine bread making Barbie. I know that was also a fan favorite.
Bread baking Barbie. everybody was baking bread, and you couldn't even find yeast at our grocery store because everyone went out. And my husband was too. He was making banana bread. He was going to town on all the baking. And so that's what I thought. I thought, well, I'll do this. And just, you know, after you bake, there's just flour all over. And so, yeah, that was where she came from.
So when you started posting these, well, we all know now, but I mean, they went viral.
They did. They were seen millions of times all over the world, from Poland to Portugal, everywhere, Taiwan. I was all over the place. And people kept saying, people keep sending me your pictures to your Barbies. And so it just, people shared and told two friends and told two friends. And yeah.
And so I know that you ended up on like People magazine. And I mean, it went so incredibly viral. And was it surprising?
You know, I was very surprised that it went viral. I thought initially, well, this is fun. Everybody likes my pictures. Everybody can relate. We all have so much in common. This is fun. And then, you know, doing the live news shows and doing the different things, it was a little stressful. I just wasn't sure what to expect. I'm not used to doing live TV or anything like that. And then when People magazine sent me an email and they said, could they use a picture in their magazine? I just started crying, and my husband came in the room and he said, why are you crying? And I said, well, People magazine wants to use one of my pictures. And he goes, and you're crying? Isn't that a good thing? And I don't know. I'm just so overwhelmed by I was like, what do you do with the attention? I was not used to that.
Yeah. And so, you know, I think, and we've already touched upon this, but it's clear that what people have responded to is the fact that it is not a Barbie world that you're showing. It's Barbie in a real world. And so let's just talk a little bit about the nitty gritty of how you actually accomplish this. You said that your grandkids were the ones who are starting you down this road, but I'm assuming that, I mean, I can see from behind you that you clearly have set. So how do you go about coming up with your topic? How do you come up with making it look real? It seems like, you know, it's a perfect picture, but there may be so many steps that are required to get there.
Well, it started with the grandkids, but then we started getting a following, and I started making friends on Instagram, and I started thinking, I like this.
Yeah.
those grandkids moved an hour away from me, and I was like, do I continue doing this? I'm like, yeah, I think I'm going to keep doing this. And so then I started really looking for, you know, sets and Barbies and miniature things and, you know, really getting into it as a creative hobby.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is a great shot of you setting it up and I guess dealing with the lighting. And what about the shoes? How do you find your Barbie shoes? How do the shoes fit into your stories?
You want to know, funny, you know what I always say about my account? I say it's a reality Barbie and it's not about the shoes.
Why did we invite you on?
Why did you invite me? Because so many of the Barbies, like you showed the old one, and I have one there, are about the high-heeled shoes and all that. And my Barbie, I wanted it to be not about the shoes, meaning it's not just about the fashion and what she's wearing. It's more real life. And so that's why I say it's not about the shoes. Shoes are important. I like shoes, but it's my account is not a fashion account.
Yeah. I realized that I didn't say this at the beginning. We're having a Q&A, but I wanted to let everybody who's watching know that we're going to have a few more questions, but we're also opening it up to the floor. So there will be time in this event for people to ask questions. So if you have questions, just put them in the chat and we'll get to them. So, okay. So you said that it's not a fashion account, and, you know, the exhibition is looking at the work that dolls do and talking about these sort of strict binaries that we have seen historically, the lack of representation. And so how do you feel Grandma Gets Real is complicating this narrative? Where do you think dolls might be heading? Where are you heading with your dolls? Let's pick this apart a little bit.
Well, me personally, I'm going to continue doing what I'm doing. I love that there are so many different dolls available. I really do think Mattel has done an excellent job on meeting the needs that everybody can be represented. So
Yeah.
I think they've done an excellent job. Me personally, I want to keep on. I try to find different dolls. I try to have a lot of different dolls on my account. I love finding this variety of dolls. To me, I love that. I love seeing so many dolls. And for my kids and grandkids, I think it's wonderful for them to have toys like this to play with. So I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. I'm going to keep having a, mini parallel universe of my life and keep trying to best represent what a grandma would be in the Barbie world if Barbie, wasn't living in the dream house and and if she lived in, real life.
Right. I think it's interesting that you do talk about the fact that when you found a Barbie that you felt looked like you, that was important. And, I think it's an experience that many people are having as the dolls become more diverse.
Yeah. And that's the one thing I hear is finally they made a Barbie of me. When I posted the quarantine Barbies, especially on Facebook, because it got shared so much over and over, finally a Barbie like me.
Yeah.
So I think that's wonderful.
So I know that people are consuming the images that you create, but I bet people are also knocking on your door to actually have you make Barbies for them or scenarios for them. Do you do that?
I am not a crafter. I love photography. I love setting up the photos. I'm not a crafter. I collect tiny things.
Right.
I collect the tiny foods and all the other little things, but I very seldom make anything. I'm always thrilled when I find some miniature somewhere that's a keychain or a toy or a Christmas ornament or just something tiny that I can use in my photos, because believe me, you don't want me making, you don't want me crafting.
But you have been, some of your dolls are in museum exhibitions, correct?
I have, it's been a fun thing. The V&A Dundee Museum in Scotland has had one of my dolls at a COVID exhibit, the bread baking Barbie, and Strong's Toy Museum in New York also has a version of the bread baking Barbie.
And so they've actually been able to add that to their collection?
Yes, yes.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great. I think that when I see all of those miniatures, I'm so surprised that so many miniatures exist. Like when I first saw your account, I was like, how in the world is she making all these small things? And then the more I looked, I was like, ooh, I think these actually maybe pre-exist.
Yes, I collect.
And so so you're collecting, and you're doing these setups. What are other people doing with these very tiny things?
Some people, a lot of people collect miniatures. It really is a pop phenomenon right now on TikTok, which is a lot of young people.
Yeah.
Big into collecting tiny things. It is a phenomenon. It really is. Tiny things are all that.
Well, then they kind of come to the show and see more tiny things, all tiny shoes.
Me too.
So I think that we have 20 minutes and that we should start. There's a lot of comments in the chat, so we should start taking questions. Okay. But I'm going to just open up the chat. So people ask away. Okay. Somebody did say, so somebody this is a good question. You may or may not want to answer it, but do you get any copyright grief from Mattel? Or is Mattel like, woohoo?
Mattel has never said a negative word to me. They send me their new dolls when they come out.
Oh, that's interesting.
And so I have a very nice relationship with Mattel. They've never commented one way or the other. And that's okay with me.
Yeah. Okay.
And I don't sell them either. So I'm not trying to,
okay.
So that's different too.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that's important to note. Okay. So people are commenting. Sorry. Okay. Yeah. Somebody said dolls for boys are always called action figures. I'll just answer that point or make a comment about that. Yeah, I find that really interesting. Does that make dolls in action figures? And in fact, with G.I. Joe, Hasbro made it so that if any store called G.I. Joe a doll, they would not sell the product to that store because it's such a gendered thing. But when you think about how G.I. Joe functions versus how Barbie functions, it's just the exact same thing. We just should get over that problem.
I borrowed my brother's G.I. Joes to date my Barbies. So
yeah. And I think one of the questions too, you talk about it briefly in the exhibition, is what exactly is Ken? Because if G.I. Joe's like this image of idealized masculinity and action, well, isn't Ken as well? Like he's the most desirable man in the Barbie world. And so,
You know, I think for many years, Ken was kind of an accessory.
oh, I agree.
I don't know that he is now, but I think that at the initial onset, he was an accessory for Barbie.
And it's I watched one of the first commercials for Ken. And so it's a little girl and she's playing with this Ken doll, and her brother's like, ew, I wouldn't go near that. Whereas he would play with G.I. Joe. And it's so, you know, I feel like 500 years from now, people will not be able to tell the differences at all, right? Okay. Sorry, there's lots of very positive comments, and I want to get to the questions. Okay. Well, while I'm scrolling through so many nice comments, can you tell us when you made the pandemic Barbie, bread making Barbie, the one that did go viral, I mean, super viral. So how exactly did you find all those pieces? And is that actual just real flour?
Yes.
On it? Yeah.
Yeah. The pieces were magnets. They were, yeah, the two bread baskets at the bottom were magnets. Some of this stuff was made by a company named Kitchen Littles. This is one of them is a mini brand. The mixer is a Christmas ornament. So
that's so funny.
I collect things from all over, and I have like a box of tiny baking things. So I just got out my box and made it.
And so, somebody's commented on the fact that you changed out the head of the Grandma Barbie onto a curvy Barbie. Have you done that sort of interchange with other Barbies?
I change almost all the heads on my dolls because most of the Barbies, when you buy them, are not articulated.
Right.
They don't. They don't sit well, you know, in a chair like Grandpa. If he goes to sit down, his legs just stick straight out, you know. So
that's hilarious.
And so now most of the new dolls are articulated, and you can bend all of their, you know. So I trade all of the heads of the dolls that I like and put them on articulated, bendable bodies.
And there's enough of a range of the bendable bodies in order to meet skin tone and
more and more. Yeah, more and more.
Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah. I mean, that is actually one of the things that really separated original Barbie from G.I. Joe.
Yes.
That G.I. Joe was so articulated, so we could do things.
Yes.
The other thing too that's sort of interesting about G.I. Joe versus Barbie is that Barbie's foot, right, always had to wear a high heel, but G.I. Joe, his finger always held a gun.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So interesting ideas, right, that are built into the bodies of these dolls.
And you have to feel sorry for a girl that spent 50 years walking on her tiptoes, right?
I know.
It's a long time.
So, okay, so a question is, how long does it take you to actually make a scenario? So like, are you working on it for months, getting all of the little pieces together?
Well, sometimes I think of something like I had a toy store, and it took me, I was collecting pieces for months for that. And then other things, I find a few, and it just depends on what I find. Sometimes it takes months, and sometimes it takes just a day or two, you know?
Yeah, that's interesting. So someone's asked, do you only collect dolls and doll things? Are you a collector of other things outside of dolls?
No, I collect Barbies, Mattel. Someone asked what the dolls are. All the dolls that I use in my dioramas are Mattel Barbies. And I do collect all the miniatures. And so that started me, if I find something in miniature and then I find it in real life, like a Fisher Price toy, then I want the big one and the little one. So I do have now some Cabbage Patch dolls and some Fisher Price toys just because I want to use them in my photographs.
And so somebody has asked, do you have advice for other doll Instagrammers of how they can reach more people and how they can further develop their accounts?
I just happen to have an account called Social Media Gets Real.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't even know
so many people were saying, how have you, had success on social media? And so I started an account just so if somebody has a question, or I can post some advice. And there's also, I think, a video on my YouTube.
Okay. Now this is a question that is very appropriate for the shoe museum, which is, do you have any tips on how to buy shoes for curvy Barbies? They're so hard to find.
You know,
The
that
shoes-
is a good question, because when they went from making the one kind of Barbie with the same shoes, that was the big
Right.
thing, that all of the dolls could wear the same clothes and the same shoes. And
Right.
now they've made all of these different dolls.
Mhm.
They all can't wear the same clothes, and they all can't wear the same shoes. And one of the things about Grandma Barbie is she can no longer wear any of the vintage clothes or shoes. So
Interesting.
she needs a whole new wardrobe and a whole new
That's
shoes
good for
too.
business.
And so that's, yeah. And so you
Right.
have to find alternative ways to find shoes and dolls. There's a lot of Etsy shops. And that's what I do on my Instagram, ideas for building a Barbie size world, and different Etsy shops and different people. I try to share where I got things and let them know, where they can get theirs.
So someone's asked an interesting question, which is, why do you think we are so interested in miniatures right now?
I think we've always been interested in miniatures doll houses for centuries, right?
Yeah.
I think there's something in us that likes, I don't know if it's a control thing. I don't know if it's so interesting, but TV shows, Land of the Giants, Gulliver's Travels, I think books, I think we've always been interested in miniatures. I mean, museums have always had miniatures.
It's true. Yeah. I think, when you go to the exhibition and you see the miniature shoes that we have in our collection, it is also just the fact that somebody made it, right? I mean, there's also that just marvel, right? That someone could do something that fine. Somebody's asked, where do you get your quarantine doll boxes? Do you make them?
Well, I use the same box for almost every doll.
Oh.
And then I just, on the ones for the museums, I printed labels and put them on it. And for the ones online, I just did it in Canva. Almost every doll is in the same box. There's a couple that needed bigger boxes, but that one box is just tattered.
That's so, okay. Yeah. And so now this maybe is the museum person in me, where are you storing all this stuff so that it's safe?
I have an attic and I have a craft room. And I have lots of stuff in there that's safe.
Are you organized? Is it like
I am a mess.
Okay.
I am a mess.
So you don't have like a shoe closet for your Barbies or?
Well, I have containers, clear containers with everything in it, and I have them labeled. I just have so much stuff. It's hard for me after I use it to put it back where it belongs.
So what is the oldest doll in your collection?
I have found a few vintage dolls. I just recently found a vintage midge at the swap meet.
Oh, that's interesting. From the 60s?
I was not a collector. Yeah, I was not a collector of vintage dolls. I was just trying to find dolls that represent my family. And then I've got dolls that represent my Instagram friends, as they have their mini-me's on Instagram. I find their dolls, like I have a few dolls here that are my friends from Instagram. I thought that was funny. So hello you. So as I find dolls and add them to my collection, thrift stores, so many great dolls out at thrift stores.
Oh, what do you do like when you find a thrift store doll that's been loved? Like, do you alter the hair? Do you?
I try not to find them. See, I'm not good at. There are people that do that, and I could pay and hire someone to do it. But I try to find them in reasonable shape, and I'm thrilled if they have their clothes and if they have shoes on.
Right. Okay. Come on. It is about the shoes.
It's all about it is about the shoes.
Okay. Yeah. Somebody's pointed out that Barbie now has Made to Move Barbies, and those are fully articulated. I think that must be what you're using mostly, right? Yeah. And they do come in different body shapes, I believe, as well.
Yeah.
And okay. Let's see. Okay. I asked you that question. I have a girl that makes a lot of boots for me by hand for my curvy dolls. So somebody's answered that question.
If you're looking for shoes for your dolls, get on Etsy, because there's all kinds of amazing crafters that make clothes and shoes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's I'm sure I'm missing a million questions. Sorry, I'm a little rusty, having not done this all summer. Okay, let's see. What is the strangest shoe that you have in your collection? Oh, it's strangest shoe. Look at me. Strangest Barbie that you have in your collection.
Thanks, Barbie. Well, as far as Barbies, I don't know, but as far as other dolls, someone recently gave me a miniature Chucky.
Oh no.
Yeah, from the scary movie. So I don't do scary stuff, but maybe I'll use him for Halloween.
Well,
So-
actually, the next salon that we're doing, we're talking about dolls and horror, and so people do have.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's another side, right, to dolls, very
Yeah.
much. So, so after this, what's your next setup going to be?
What is my next setup? Well, I just finished the toy store, so now I'm working on a grocery store.
Oh, excellent, excellent.
My
And
next
and how often are you able to change your scenarios?
I usually build a room and then I leave it like that. Like I have a kitchen and a living room and
I see.
office here. So I usually build a room. They're lightweight. They're out of foam board, and then I leave the room put together.
So it's basically like a deconstructed dollhouse.
Yeah,
Or
like just a diorama, or yeah.
And so somebody's asked, do you have a favorite doll miniature, or was there a miniature that you got that you were just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that there's a miniature of this?
I love anything that I have in real life. And so probably my newest one is I just found some miniature animal crackers.
Oh my gosh. And is it just the box, or is it also the
It's just the
cookies?
box.
Yeah.
But then once I find a miniature one, then I keep finding it in different sizes. So now I have like 6 or 7 different sizes of animal crackers I haven't photographed yet. So, I love finding new things. So my favorite one is my newest one.
Oh yeah, of course. And are people sending you miniatures?
I do. I have had a number of Etsy shops and different people that say, I love your account. Can I send you, something I've got or something I've made? And yeah, I've had, so yeah, it's been interesting. It's been fun.
Yeah, it does seem like a very strong community.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's it's been interesting watching you, because I've been watching you for a while, to see that community grow, and how many enthusiastic people there are interested not only in what you're doing, but also just in Barbies and in dolls themselves. It's like a really interesting.
They really are. I think it's from childhood. It's the nostalgia. It's that they like to do it. And I really do think, and I think during the last year, that it's been therapy for people. I call it doll therapy.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. Do you think that we'll ever be printing Barbie dolls, 3D Barbie dolls at home?
Well, people have machines to 3D print all kinds of stuff. It just might.
Yeah, wouldn't that be interesting?
If we could I bet they could.
Yeah, 3D print it out of something and eat it later for dinner. It's like, in terms of sustainability issues.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And so is there a number one place that you go to get miniatures? Or like you said, they're just sort of all over the place?
Well, they're all over the place. Etsy has great ones. eBay, I find lots of stuff on. And the toys, I mean, I have had a number of different toy companies send me their toys, the mini brands, the Real Littles, there's all, the Super Impulse has the world's smallest. Who doesn't love the world's smallest, right?
Yeah, right.
They've got the world's smallest and everything. So that's been great that there are, if you're not a crafter, there are things on the market you can get for your dollhouse.
Well, it would be interesting if your Barbies start collecting miniatures. It's very time.
Oh, they have.
Oh my gosh. How small is that?
Tiny.
Yeah, I can't even imagine.
So I've got so many different sizes of stuff. I'm confused all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember when my kids were little, just like doll shoes everywhere, and you step on all of them. Hopefully, you're not having to experience that with your.
I lose a lot of things. Yeah. I'm always telling the grandkids, get under the table and see if you can find that. I've lost some stuff.
Here, somebody's just made the comment, healing the inner child with Barbie.
I think so. And when we were young and we were children and we wanted things, you longed for something. It's so much more fun now with a credit card. As an adult, you get to have fun and buy the toys that you want.
Yeah, that's true. I guess they don't take up as much space.
It's true.
Somebody has made the point of that they used to play with paper dolls and they don't know if paper dolls are around anymore. I would argue that they are online.
They are. Yeah, they
right?
are. I asked about them. Yeah.
Yeah, real paper dolls are around, but also now you can go online and you can play games that are basically paper dolls where you dress, dress dolls up. And so somebody has asked if you make all of your room boxes yourself. And so you said you're not crafty, but are you making the kitchens?
Yeah, well, they're just foam board glued together. It's not a real technical, and they're not real good, but they work for me. I don't ever show the back side or the sides. They're all.
Yeah. Well, I think if anybody has any last questions, just send them to us. I've gone through the Q&A. We've answered all of those questions, but one seems to have come in. Oh, and do you ever wake up? So this is a question. Do you ever wake up and think, not today, and just want to take a break from all of the social media engagement that actually is being sort of demanded of you right now?
You know what? I do take breaks. Sometimes I just take a day and don't post and, spend it with my family, go somewhere with my husband, or do something on my own. I think maybe with age, I think that, like, if it's the social media, like the comparison and all that, I think with age comes a little wisdom about some of the things that social media that people struggle with. Yeah, I know that I have my little niche, and there's people that are crafters that do amazing stuff, like my Froggy stuff. She does amazing crafts. And then there's Bella Barbie doll that does amazing photography. Everybody's got something they're good at. So I'm not comparing myself trying to be someone else. I'm just trying to do what I love to do and be creative. And so maybe that takes a little pressure off. I'm not,
You're not upset about it, obsessed with it.
I'm not upset, and I'm not upset about it. It's, it's not the likes, it's the creativity. And I think more so lately, I've been doing things that I really love. I'm like, it's about what I really want to do and what I love. And it's not about,
Does Barbie, okay, and so this will be the last question and then you can go. Does Barbie, sorry, let me have a glass of water.
All right, good idea.
Do your Barbies do what you do, or do you ever have your Barbies do things you haven't been able to do?
Yes.
Or you're afraid to do, or you want to try? Does Barbie try first?
Well, not so much that. My Barbies usually go where I go and do what I do, or I set up things that I do in real life. But they do travel when I haven't been able to travel. They've traveled quite a bit.
Right.
They do have parties. They do a lot of stuff that we haven't done much of in the last year. So I have lived a bit vicariously through the dolls.
Right. I think we all have.
Yeah.
I think we have all been living vicariously through the work that you've been doing. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this talk with me. And it's a great way to kick off the new exhibition, All Dolled Up. And so I really thank you for your time. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your great questions. And don't forget to follow Grandma Gets Real on all the social media platforms. And don't forget to come to the Bata Museum and see our new doll exhibition.